Hi, everybody. Welcome to the MEF2C cast. Our guests today are Audra and Phil Kimmett, who are William's parents. How are you guys today?
We're doing great.
Yep. Good, good, good. So, start by just telling us a little bit about yourselves and about your family.
So, Audra and Phil, you introduced us, and we have 3 kids. William is our oldest. He's 8. Ellie is our second. She's 7. And Colton is our third. He's 5. We're in Cincinnati. What else?
I think in general, we're really appreciative that Will was our oldest who was diagnosed because we had the time and opportunity to get all the early intervention that we needed. And we'll probably go through a lot of those questions later. But our other two kind of followed along, and Will actually tracked with them on different milestones at different times. So it was like our house has been a little competitive manner here and there. So anyway, that's
Yeah,
us,
that's cool.
and here we are.
Yeah, I remember Will specifically at the meetup just because I something about like little redhead kids, they just look like extra mischievous, you know what I mean? They just look like they're
Uh-huh.
always gonna get into trouble. And
That he is.
you guys were sitting next to us at the restaurant, and he was going through stimming on his AAC. He's just a funny little guy.
Oh, yeah.
But so tell me about, what initially, like, after Will was born, what initially made you think that there might be something different about him and sort of how you arrived at your diagnosis?
Yep, that's a good question. I was actually lucky enough to be on mat leave within 3 weeks of my best friend whose daughter was born at the same time as Will. And it was both of our first kids. So, like, as much as you don't want to compare things, like, we had 4 months. We both worked for Procter and Gamble. Great, mat leave policy. We both had 4 months to like sit there side by side with our kid, like daily to be like, something's just not clicking. And then I think for us, it was like the grabbing, like the initial grabbing for things. And then the lazy eye never disappeared. So we saw like four ophthalmologists before he was like 12 months old to finally like be like, okay, it's not like the baby lazy eye. Like we've got
Mhm.
something there, which ended up turning into CBI. And then the grabbing and then the milestones, like but he actually rolled over pretty quickly, but sitting up took a minute. I remember propping him up for pictures and
Yeah, we were way behind for the
obviously, like,
crawling.
crawling and walking and all the other things became, like, way later. But when you think about, like, what, like, triggers you as, like, a first-time parent, that, like, there's something wrong and it's not like it's just gonna happen that your parents and grandparents tell you. Those were the couple, like, triggering moments of, like, pediatrician need some extra resources here.
So let me ask you this: did almost everybody we talked to, the mom is like, "I knew something was wrong right away the whole time," and the dad is like it'll sort itself out, and then eventually it's like, it's not going to." So was that the case with you guys?
Oh, I think a lot of that actually happens when and you have probably more data than I do. I think a lot of that happens when people have their kids in daycares earlier than not because 'cause they're really quick at, like, picking that stuff up. My mom actually watched William until he was 10 months old, and so when he went to daycare at 10 months old, that's when, like, all the fevers started because he was at a germ world, and everyone else gets most of that when germs start, and, like, fevers start, and seizures start, and, like,
Yeah.
and. We didn't actually get that because my mom had Will for 10 months, and she kept him in this little umbrella. And she was like, "It's gonna be fine." My mom is a very, like, traditional conservative, "It's gonna be fine, your child's
Mhm.
fine, like, all of it is fine." And so, if I didn't have the comparison of my friend who I was on mat leave with, I might have drank the juice that it was fine, but between the eyes and the grabbing stuff and the sitting up, we were like both of us were really advanced with our childhood uprearing, and our parents both tell us we were, like, first to this and first to that and first so you're like, "Okay, something must have clicked." I don't know if it was like a me versus you thing though, like a joint, like I mean, he went to the hospital at 10 months old for a couple days and like shit hit the fan at like 10 to 12 months old. And we were in the hospital and both of us were like, shit's wrong. Like
Yeah, yeah, a hospital stay would have that effect. What did he have a seizure, or what's the story with the hospital visit?
Yeah, like, everything from 10 to 12 months old was, like, total breakdown.
Yeah, so, like, what Audrey was saying is William started daycare with, like, a boatload of kids, and so he got all the germs much later than maybe, like, a typical kid would. After 4 months, they would go to daycare. He stayed with Audra's mom for a while, so once he started getting those germs, he got, like, just the normal bugs that any other kid would get, and his fever caused complex febrile seizures. And so, that took us into the hospital. Like, when his fever would spike, his body would shut down, and that happened, like, what, 3 times in a very short,
Yeah, I
like, a
think to
couple
get
days?
complex febrile, you have to have, like, 3 seizures within 48 hours or something like that, so it all really hit us like a brick as soon as he hit daycare at 10. 10 to 12 months was we were in neurology, genetics. We just got out of urology. No, we were still in urology because he had something with that. I mean, I think I speak for all of the MEF2Cs. We visited like more than 50% of the departments in said general hospital within a year. But for us, it was all condensed in like that 10 to 12 months. So we're at Cincinnati Children's, which, not to put a plug in for that, I think we're like number one or two in the nation and more than 50% of the departments. So like
Mm.
they were like boom, boom, boom. But it took until 10 months to actually get that because it's kinda like I think of my other kids, like, one of my kids has, huge tonsils and needs their adenoids taken out, and the doctor was like, "If you don't have strep, what is it, 7 times in 1 year, then we won't even consider removing." And you're like, "Oh my god, they're not gonna consider anything," because Will, between 10 and 12 months, had all of these things happen, and all within 10 to 12 months, so they're gonna think it's a fluke, like, and our monoallelic, our all of our genetics while pregnant, all of the stuff that he took within 1 to 4 months, like, everything was like, normal. So, like, we have a mutation, I'm not sure what you guys have with Eli, but,
Mhm.
like, all of it actually showed up normal. So we're like, neurotypical kid, we just gotta do some speech OTPT, like, we'll get it fixed and run out. And then 12 months, we went to genetics. He got blood, I got blood, Will got blood, and that's when it was like, "Alright, so the things that you were thinking as a parent are real." We got blood drawn that summer, and then I'll never forget this, it was November of 2018 because my daughter was 4 months old. I was actually Will and his sister are 14 months apart, and we didn't get his diagnosis until she was already born. So, we got diagnosis when I was on mat leave with her, and I was like, "Holy shit." Well, 1, it all makes sense now. 2, like, this sucks. Like, we're gonna have to navigate a lot of stuff, but, like, great to know. Like, I'm glad we live in 2018 at the time when, like, you can, like, partner with people on the grand wide WWW and figure stuff out better than physicians can. But that was kind of our 12 to 18 month, like, that was our, everyone has their like smack in the face time. 12 to 18 months old was our like smack in the face time.
So, excuse me, how did your actual experience with the diagnosis go? Like you get a phone call or go to the geneticist or whatever, like when they're actually telling you about the diagnosis, was it like a lot of families have an experience where it's pretty negative, where they're like, your kid's never gonna walk or talk or all these other things? Was that your experience? Was it more positive? Can you talk about that?
You'll have to do that one.
Yeah. I I think there's just some, like, you hear it, but it's not, like, a very familiar thing. So, like, obviously, if somebody is like, "Oh, you have cancer," you kinda, like, have an idea of what that is. But since it was something that was, like, not, it was a rare disease, is something that we hadn't heard of before, we really had to kind of, like, dig in a little bit deeper to try to understand. And, like, over time, I think we learned a little bit more about, like, "Oh, this is what that means," instead of knowing what to expect right away, And then after getting into some of the Facebook groups and stuff, we started to learn, like, the differences between mutations and deletions and duplications, and then how that affects kids differently. But I think at first it was like your brain always goes like worst case scenario. You just think like, oh my gosh, like they're never going to walk, they're never going to talk, they're never going to be able to do anything. And then like as you start to kind of calibrate on like,
The first medical journal actually written, like, I know that you guys have read this as well, like, back when, whatever, it was conceived in mice in, like, 2009 to when the first journal was written in, like, what, 2010 or 11 to when William was born in 2018, nothing had been updated in those 5 to 8 years. So if you actually read that medical piece, it's like that our geneticist gave us, it was like 80% of the I still have the trifold because we used to hand it out to caregivers. It was like 80% of the kids won't do this, and 50% of the kids won't do this, and 70% of the kids are gonna look like this. And you're like, well, here's my like handicapped child. Please help me do something with him. Like, and I don't know how to digest, do more, get more. But it was actually the NEF2C group that ended up being like, it was hard. It was definitely hard to digest because we like got into Facebook and you start like, I'll never forget which kid was it? He's not on as often anymore. It was like singing the ABCs.
I know I know who you're talking about. I don't know their name
he's
either, but I remember
in
that.
England.
He's in England, yeah. His dad was really involved for a minute.
Um,
I need to contact him at some point. Anyway, you see the different abilities of different kids and you like try to connect with like where your kid may or may not be based on where they're at, like when you found out. And it's a reality check.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and for me, my first thought was, like, they don't actually know enough about us or about this to tell us that much, you know what I mean? Like, when there's so little data to be like, that
Doctors,
was
or
actually what's that?
are you saying like doctors don't know enough
I mean,
about it?
there just wasn't enough data on
Yeah.
it in general for them to really make any super concrete conclusions. So that was, like, weirdly comforting to me to, like it's not that it's better that we don't know much about this than we definitely know a lot about it and it's all bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we were very fortunate that our geneticist was like, "Here's what I could find. I don't know that much." He managed to find the Facebook group and put us onto that, which was like we
Same.
had that from day one. That's the best possible thing he could have done for
Yep.
us. But
Same.
like a lot of other people had medical providers who read the same papers you're talking about, and they sort of it seems like some of them have the philosophy of like telling people the worst case scenario and then maybe they'll be pleasantly surprised as opposed to giving them any type of hope in any way, which I'm not obviously I'm not advocating for, but other people have had that experience as well. So,
No, I'm glad you said that. The person we had did that as well. I think the initial call was a gut check, but she also was the one that recommended the Facebook group for both, actually, the parent one and the provider one. She found that before we did. Um, and sent us to that. And that's actually where the paperwork's the gut check, but I personally think joining the Facebook group is the real gut check because so I'm a scientist, he's an engineer. So like
mhm,
we come from a very scientific background and you know there's anomalies, you know that there's like nature versus nurture and we can do our best to be at the top of the curve, if you will. But that said, you join a Facebook group and the parents at the time and the postings at the time were more of a gut check for me than the paperwork. Paperwork I can defy. The n equals whatever sample size was small enough for me to be like, there's thousands of us out there. Like they just haven't written about us yet,
right, yeah,
where we can defy what's on that paper. I know that from like a literally like a scientific consumer product researcher. Like the
mhm,
data's bad.
mhm,
But the gut check was actually on the Facebook page that was like, "No, this is what it phenotypically looks like. This
mhm,
is what it's gonna present itself. This is what your child has the possibility of looking like in teenage and adult years." That was
yeah.
the gut check. That was like we need to take a step back.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is like and this isn't to call anyone out personally because I think everybody like I genuinely everybody I've interacted with on the Facebook group, I think they're doing the best that they can. But, like, if you look at the older kids, they were also born earlier when we didn't understand as much about these things, when we didn't understand early intervention as much, when the attitudes of caregivers towards these people were very different. So I think there is some, like, weird bias there where you can't I mean, you could extrapolate some things, but there's also some things that, like, I don't know. Do you see where I'm coming from with that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The therapies and the especially early intervention, like, we were critical on early intervention, which we did as much as we feel is possible at the time that we have. I get your point, though. I get your point.
Mm,
Like, I just think culture is different, especially in different regions at different times too. So, like, I don't know. We both work full time, but we both work from home most times. So,
mm,
like, we have an like during COVID, for example, which was a critical point of Will's upbringing, like through what he was like 3 to 6 during COVID
Mhm.
ish, like lockdown time. We were here for all that. We had people in our house, like we joke that our door was revolving during that time period. And as much as so many people hated that time period and say they would like whatever, that was awesome for us. Like, to be able to have the excuse to have someone come into your house on a daily basis to do all of these therapies because he was not able to go to not that we ever would have chosen to go to a facility, but at the time, like, we had ABA, PT, speak like, all the things, like, in-house, like, I don't think we would have gotten that now. Like, I also can't say that for the older adults, like, kids and parents, but, like, I also know that those what's the right word? Conveniences weren't available. What convenience isn't the right word. That atmosphere just wasn't like, I don't know. We probably had the best case scenario for early intervention.
mhm, yeah. Were those services through, like, what is it called in Ohio? Help Me Grow or whatever, like, actual the
Ohio's
state
helped me
early
grow.
intervention?
Only until 3 though. So
Right.
we graduated that by the 2020 period, but we still have Medicaid at that point, which we can get into later. God, if I could write a book on how to like get an SSA and Medicaid and I mean Ohio is totally different from all the other states, which is different from all the other countries, so it's probably a worthwhile like worthless thing to put together, but God,
Well,
what a
there that
what a
I would read it,
feat
I'll tell you
to get
that.
Medicaid. Like
Yeah.
anyway, uh our help me grow person literally handed all of our paperwork over to our SSA for Medicaid when he was 3 to 4 and was like, they qualify. Here's all their shit. She's gonna give you all their what you have to do, like Social Security and or W-2s and all the things, and he doesn't qualify. We don't qualify for this. He doesn't qualify for this. We qualify for that. He doesn't, and all the different like triangulating and trigonometry that ends up coming into it to be like, you need to plead that you're both gonna lose your jobs for your child to get any sort
Mhm.
of care, which I played into 100%. So hope that's all on record. Play into it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that was a bitch. Sorry.
So,
I don't wanna go through that paperwork again. That
no,
sucked.
believe me, I understand. So once you got the diagnosis, sort of where did you what was your guys' first steps from there?
Mm, I think we were already in Help Me Grow. They helped us push, like, the questions. They were like, "Get this, get this, get this. Make sure to ask for this." The most gentle, caring person ever to be like, "Consider, you should think about." It's like, "These are all great things, thank you," without being pushy. But once we got the diagnosis and paired, honestly, with the Facebook page, like, gut check, it was like a blend of what's worth it? What's the juice worth the squeeze right now? Can't do all these therapies at once,
Mhm.
and at the time, until he actually got Medicaid at, like, what, 4 or 5? What time we living here? 2025? It's born
2020.
2018, 2017. Anyway, it was a blend of, like Not the affordability, because some of those things can get stupid expensive if they actually aren't covered. Like the therapy visits per year are redunculous until you get Medicaid, and then you're like, every day, please.
We
But we like figured out what the juice for the squeeze was. I was like, he's not going to be talking in the next 2 or 3 years. Like, we saw the other kid on Facebook. We saw that it was super rare. We were like, speech therapy is not the juice for the squeeze right now. Like, I want him to walk. Like, we like the you think about like what the major milestones are for independence, and the major one for us at the time was physically moving, because that's what our fear was from all the, which still is, like there's a lot of MEF2C kids that end up never walking. Like,
Mm.
so we were like physical moving for our own physical, like put your oxygen mask on first is like number one. So we prioritized PT.
we went to the Perelman Center,
And we did Perlman Center.
and
Yep.
I think
So Perlman Center is Cincinnati offered. It's part of this like general Children's Cincinnati that does OTPT speech for 4 hours twice a week. In the you can pick when you do it. Parents have to be available. So you talk about like two working parents like taking time off to be like. So we rotated Wednesday, Fridays on who would take the afternoon off to take Will down to, and I was on mat leave with Ellie for a little while too. So I remember being down with her as well. Anyway, it was like, we're going to get them all in, see which one like hits. But you also get to talk to the PTOT speech at the same time. So like PT went off and got a McCain made with May We Help. And like what do you want to call them around
yeah,
us?
May We Help is like, people who are retired who are very, like, crafty and handy.
Engineers, they're all
Yep, and
engineers.
they will build, an apparatus or a device that is, like, maybe a little bit unique to fit the needs of a kid. Okay, you can sit on a bike, but you have a hard time holding on, so they might make something that's easy, like an extension of the handlebars so that the kids can hold on better, for example. For William,
Okay.
they made
If this is a plug for May We Help in our area, like it's worth a 4 hour drive to their facility. They do
It's
equipment swaps and like a bunch of other really cool shit.
is that just a local thing, or is that a
Yeah, it's a one of a kind, like happens to be right down the street from us. If anyone wants to stay with us, you're welcome to like stay for a night or two, go get your shit, swap your shit, and then like it's
yeah,
really cool. It's a really cool
that
concept.
yeah.
Quarterly, they do equipment swaps. So like, you don't even have to bring anything to get something. And they have volunteer PTs to like, you walk in, you're like, I really wish we had a tricycle for him that would keep his feet locked down because he won't
Oh,
keep his feet steady on the pedals. And you like literally like truck around their warehouse of equipment and you're like, I think this one might work out. And then there's a PT in the corner over there, and you might wait for 45 minutes to an hour. So bring your iPad and all your other snacks, and you go sit with PT. And they're like, I would loosen this. I'd ask them to add you a strap to that, and I would fix this, and you're on your way.
just
It's
think of people who buy a device or something for their kid, and their kid outgrows it, and they, donate it, and then it gets repurposed and somebody else can use it later.
There's a
So
lot of like
it's
yeah.
fancy shit that people buy with insurance too that ends up getting put in the swap too. So
Yeah, I mean, to your point, we drove to Columbus one morning, that's 2.5 hours away, to buy a stroller for Leo that someone else had bought with insurance and then never used for their kid, that we couldn't afford with our insurance because it would have been astronomical with our insurance, but these people were selling it for 350 bucks, and I've definitely heard of equipment swaps like that before. But I also just think the idea, like, so my dad and his dad are both carpenters, and my mom, like, super duper just kinda tinkery. We call her MacGyver. Like, she's always messing with stuff. She's got a 3D printer she's always fiddling around. So, like, I can totally picture that kind of person that is like, "Let me just fiddle with this thing and fix it and rig you some." Like, if we
what
need
a cool retirement job.
yeah, that's just such a cool idea. Anyway, I forget what we were even talking about. Oh, but you were just talking about his therapy and stuff.
Yeah, so I think your original question, we like to rabbit hole
N
here. Your
no,
original
that's
question
perfect.
was like one of the couple of therapies that we go to. What was our first like go to? And it was really like Children's does like a multi whatever.
Mhm.
PTOT speech. I seriously think like 40% of it is for the parents to just like figure this shit out because no one is given a book that your child is born and you're going to need to do all these therapies all at once. So in all honesty, and still to this day, I feel like it's speech for us is like I need to be tutored on speech more than Will or anyone else.
Mhm.
Like PT, I can like I played D1 soccer, like I can get in the gym and tell you what muscles move what things and what needs to be worked and how to move your body in certain ways. Like OT, like I didn't even think existed for a little while, but like we think about using our pincers and he went and got like a asp to hold down or a
Glove.
Velcro glove to hold down these three fingers
Mm.
to only have these showing to make him use them. Now, he tore it off after 10 minutes, but like it would make him like pick things up. That was our OT stuff, and we're still working with OT on self feeding. But for us at that point in time, it was walking. Like we need to make you mobile because our genetics share that you're going to be potentially 6 foot tall and how many pounds. And when you're 30 years old, I need to be able to still push you in the direction I need you to go. So that was a click for us. Now it's speech and communication. Anyway, that was our what therapy to get into first.
Yeah. Well, to your earlier point about the therapy being for the parents, like I would say after the Facebook group, like our most valuable resource has been our therapist. Not I mean, we really like all of our doctors as well, but like just as far as like applicable stuff to immediately help him and like the PTs too, like I get what you're saying about like knowing understanding that stuff, but they just like the way she does it with him, I can't do. You know what I mean? Like she just has a understanding of having worked with so many kids and like, oh, if I touch him right here with this particular pressure in this way, like, she'll make him do whatever.
Oh, I
I
have a
think
question for you too, not to switch
okay.
the interview. I'm
No, that's fine.
actually a consumer interviewer. I interview a lot of people. However, question for you. Do you and mom need to be removed for his therapies? Because I tend to need to be removed because he will seek me out for like kissing and loving and mom will save me. And I literally need to remove myself from the room. So I'm
Haley
curious how that is
usually
for you guys.
usually does, yeah. She's gotta, like, hide to try and watch him, and that's just kind of a source of frustration for her just in general 'cause it's like, you can't even watch him play because, like, if he makes eye contact with you, then it's over. Normally, if he's
Okay. Same. Okay.
yeah.
It's not just us.
Yeah, but normally if he's I mean, he likes to play with me, but if he, like, is searching me out, he has some sensory need because, like, Leo would let me shoot him out of a cannon if I could. Like, he likes to be thrown around, tossed around, flip upside down. I'll, like, hold him upside down by the hips, and he's almost too big to do this because he's, like, 45 pounds, he's huge, but I'll throw him up in the air and flip him and catch him under his armpits. So, like, if he's coming to me, normally he needs that regulation. He needs some deep pressure
Yeah,
or some
he's a fun
spinning or
series
something like
seeker
that.
too. Yep, yep.
Yeah.
All good. That's because I flipped the script on you, so that's my
No,
fault.
that's okay. The other point I wanted to make, I've made this point on the show before, but, like, what you talked about with like, cost benefit analysis of the different therapies, I think it's
Yeah.
important for people to hear that, like, you don't have to be in every therapy all the
And
time.
so many people think that, like, they owe that to their kid to, like, give every last dime of their life to
Mhm.
get them in every therapy possible at every minute of every day. It you can
Well,
fill
it's
in the
not
Yeah.
blanks. But
go
I
ahead.
also I also think that, like, the attention span of a 2, 3,
that
4-year-old
too.
is limited. If
Mhm.
you're playing therapies or the therapies are too long, then you're gonna have a hard time getting what you want out of it. So,
Right.
like, shorter therapies, a couple times a week, I think worked out really well for us because younger kid, shorter attention span, and then it's not, like, so repetitive where they're just like, "Alright, let's get this over with."
Mhm.
Any kid would do. They
I was
they
just about to
can
say,
focus on it a little
this
bit.
wasn't just a Will thing. As soon as we had our 2 neurotypical kids, I was like, there are so many things that when Will hit 4 or 5 and another one of our kids needed something too, we were like, Oh my god, I thought this was just because of Will and his diagnosis. No, this is because kids are fucking sorry, kids are
You're
kids,
alright.
and, like, they are, like, all over the place squirreling. Like, this is not a Will thing. So, like, we have boy, girl, boy, and I always thought the sleep thing was so Will. Waking up in the middle of the night, and I know 80% of our group didn't sleep for years when their MEFT was diagnosed. Maybe still don't. But I always thought it was like a Will thing. And then our other son was born, and I was like, it's a boy thing. Like, our youngest boy did not sleep until
Didn't
10
sleep.
months old either.
Didn't
Like,
sleep.
my God. And then he's all over the place and like words and numbers and thing that just like general things didn't click for
Mhm.
much longer than did for our daughter. So like literally we were like, okay, God gave us Will and then God gave us Ellie. We're on like these two different ends of the spectrum. Literally we got Ellie tested for giftedness because we are that like far apart on the
Mhm.
spectrums. And then we had our third, which was Colton. He was like right here and we are like, "Oh, maybe he's just, like, right in the middle neurotypical, like, we just don't know yet." And now he's, like, testing super well too, but it's just because boys are delayed. Like,
Take
it had nothing to do with MEFTC, it just had to do with, like, boys are delayed in early developmental stuff. Will caught on to a lot of stuff at the same time as Colton did in some senses, different ways, but, like,
Mhm.
some senses are just like, the boys are just late.
Yeah.
Someone just needs to be like, "The boys are just late."
Well, and it's really easy to and Leo's my only child, and I don't really have that much experience with children outside of it, so almost everybody listening probably has more experience with children than I do. But it's really easy to attribute every difficult thing to their disability, and then it just feels like you're just totally getting beaten down by this thing, and it's like, that's not necessarily the case. Like, my to your point, like, my niece didn't sleep for a long like, she was waking up in the middle of the night until a couple years ago. She's 7. So, like, it's important to remember that, like, it's not always like, kids are just hard, and that's okay. That doesn't make it any easier, but it's not always this thing, and you don't have to, it's really easy to get really bitter toward that thing if you chalk up every bad thing to it.
Mhm.
And then
Oh, yeah.
also the earlier Go ahead, sorry.
No, I was agreeing with you.
Okay.
Yes.
To your earlier point about therapies, like, and also you were talking about the gym earlier, and I could go on for a long time about how, like, training and, like, dealing with uh, these therapies and stuff are similar because movement is a skill. Like, fundamentally, those two things are kind of the same thing. But like, if you're going to train an athlete, you periodize things. You don't work on their, like, say their 5K time and their max deadlift at the same time, because neither of those things are going to benefit that much from it. You work on, maybe building strength for a phase, and then you just do a little bit to maintain that strength while you work on building, say, speed or some other quality, and then you inch them all up that way. And I think that seems like a more reasonable way to approach the therapies to me than trying to throw everything at them all at once. And the other thing just is, like, if you're beating the hell out of yourself to make your kid all these therapies, spending money that you don't have on these therapies, like, that's not a good long-term strategy for your family, and your kid needs you to be healthy and relatively financially stable for a long period of time. So even if it means they get less therapy or whatever in the short to medium term, like, you have to consider yourself, because your child is going to be so dependent on you for, essentially your whole life.
That's a great take on it all. And I think we digested therapies in a similar way to you and how we staggered, if you will. I think for us, we didn't see as much of a benefit with speech because he didn't want to be there for the first little while. So that's he made the staggering happen. He what's the best? He digested and comprehended PT. We could do PT. And OT was hit or miss. Speech, it was like, this is pointless for us to be here. This is totally effing pointless. Like we need to put this on pause for 2 years. which is crazy that I say that because we did it last year when we started Lucaboran, and it was like a click, which is crazy. He said 7 words within 4 months, and feel like we should be a poster child, but now he hasn't done any since then. So, like, we're like, "Ah, that was so amazing. We need to go get Taylor back." But, like, it's also really interesting how they click with different people, so I have a feeling that like, speech didn't, like, just it didn't click with some of
Mhm.
the people he was with, and he has to click with someone that he's with. Like,
Yeah.
he is very, like yeah, I don't know. He has to click.
Yeah, Leo is a great judge of character in the sense that, like, if he likes someone, you can be he has to like someone to interact with them in any way, but if he likes someone, you can be fairly certain that you're gonna like them as well. So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, yeah. You made 2 comments. One was on from the therapies, and you made one more after that.
There.
Oh, yes! Thank you. Oh my goodness. If I can preach to the choir anymore, to you and any other parent out there, put your oxygen mask on first. I can't, like, describe like, you made a comment earlier, and it just clicked for me, and I was like, we are both healthy individuals. We don't even see a regular PCP in our 20s and 30s, but we're like, and we're not on any medication at all. We're like, we need to start seeing someone, not for ourselves, but for Will. We actually need to be there in the long run, like, whether it's, like, selfish for, like, this, that, or the whatever, but, like, we need to start considering ourselves because at this point, like, he is our whatever until whenever, so, like, we we gotta get our shit together.
Yeah.
We're healthy, but we
We're
gotta, like, actually think about it now.
Yeah, well, in 2 aspects, right? So, one is physically, like, as long as we can, and then the other one is to be an advocate for him. Like, that's just as powerful, but he's in this not getting the care he needs, well, somebody needs to speak up, and we can even if we're not able to, like, physically move him around and do those things, we'll be able to help in that regard too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And there are sorry, I'm a meathead, so anytime I can talk about this kinda thing, I get excited, but, like, people need to consider the factual reality that having a child with this disability will come with, like, physical demands that won't come with other aspects of parenting. Like, you said Will's probably gonna be big. Leo's 3, and he's the size of, like, a five-year-old. Like I said, he's almost 50 pounds. Like, I am going to have to muscle probably, like, I will probably have to spend a significant amount of my life wrestling a 6 foot tall, 200-pound person, and, like, that you need to have a certain amount of fitness just to not fall apart. I mean, we both jacked up our backs really bad just heaving and hoeing him in and out of his crib when he was too big to be in there because we were afraid to put him on a regular bed. And again, like, you can't be a good your back is there's a comedian named Hannibal Buress, and he has a joke where he talks about your back is most of your body. Like, if if your back's messed up, like, there's not really a whole lot you can do
Yeah.
in any aspect. So,
It's
like
so
yeah.
we need to talk offline. Can we show you some tips and tricks? We've got our
Yeah,
beefy
absolutely.
little boy learned how to get in and out of bed himself and in and out of the tub himself, and we're happy to show you how
Yeah.
he does.
He has a floor bed now that's, like we had
Oh, no.
this
Uh-oh.
thing it's the only one we could
Okay,
find.
there
There's one guy that makes them on Etsy in the Ukraine. It costs as much to ship it as it did to buy it, but it's, like, got crib height rails and a closing gate on a floor bed, so he's got a full-size bed on the floor that he can't climb out of now, so that's
you
really
go.
nice, but
You guys got
it's really
your
expensive.
everyone finds their own we just took the topper off of a bunk bed and works great, but
Mm,
everyone finds their own. I've seen the craziest concoctions as well, and a lot of them are very
Yeah.
expensive, but
It like, to kind of, like, maybe help some other families too, I think we set ground rules with William, like, we it takes a lot of repetition because it, like, obviously, like, it doesn't sink in the first time, and even with a neurotypical kid, like, telling them, "You're not allowed to do this. You can't open that door to go outside," like, it takes repetition, repetition, repetition,
it's huge.
and I think we spent a lot of time being, like, very not, like, somewhat strict, but also, like, very consistent with Will. Like, you can't get out of bed until
7
it's
AM.
time to get out of bed. And now he's kind of ingrained those are, like, ingrained in his brain that, you know, if I'm not allowed to do this, I can't touch the hot stove, like, some for safety, others to help us.
That
William, sit down,
mhm,
like, he'll grab your hands and he'll sit himself down. So, like, that's helps our back and our physical.
yeah.
He climbs into bed, so,
My
like, those
mom
those
has
things.
scoliosis, and she just watched him herself for the full last week while we were in Phoenix, and we took our other 2 kids to Phoenix to do a bunch of hiking and there in Sedona, and came back, and after coaching my mom through and she's seen us with him as well through all of this, but she's like, "We got it done. Thank you for the coaching," and he understands commands, and now that he knows those, it's not just with us. When he sees us, can he climb into bed and step over properly into the tub and sit himself down for a diaper change, but he can do that for other people too because he knows the commands. So, like, if my mom was here, if Kayla was here, if Nani was here, like, he's got 4 or 5 other people who can give him the quote unquote, like, command strictly and sternly and in man voice
Mhm.
to, like, sit down. It's time for diaper change. Like,
Mhm,
climb up into bed. I don't know. There's like 5 basic don't break your back as an adult things that we also have a beefy child that need to happen. Like,
Getting in and out of the car was
car,
a
yeah,
big,
the
big
car
one.
was a big one too.
But I think that it was just kinda looking back on it, having that repetitiveness and that consistent, like, using the same command over and over again allowed him to recognize, like, when he needed to do something, and now it's made things a lot easier to maneuver and manipulate him, so to
And
get
I
him
could
into.
genuinely say, like, that's easier to teach Will these things than it is to teach our neurotypical 2 kids to put on their clothes the right way. We do a lot of other nagging and begging and bribing and whatever for the other 2. Like, Will is actually in a different way, very simple. I've told so many people, like, "It's so hard to have a special needs kid," and you're like, "In so many ways, he's actually, like, our least high maintenance child." Like, don't get me wrong, until 3, he was the most high maintenance, times 20. But, like, now, like, he's the happiest, most chill kid ever with his 5 to 10 commands, like not command sounds to me, like derogatory, like, instructions,
mhm.
but instructions are good for all of us, like, but the other 2, "Oh my god, like, I told you 5 times now, like, XYZ," like, it takes forever.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and those ground rules show a certain amount of respect to Will too, because you're not just because he has a disability, you're not infantilizing him and assuming that he, like, couldn't possibly do these things, and you know what I mean? And so, like, you're
Mhm.
treating him as closely to age appropriate as you can approximate by doing those things, which I think is really important. We're
We had
going
3
through a s
kids in 34 months, actually, so the 3 kids are incredibly close together, and that's, I think I mentioned way earlier in the interview, he has, like, milestoned with each of them at different random points in time. But he gets commended for doing way better listening job than the other 2 do. So, like, he has his accolades almost better than they do, like, to be able to quote unquote "work for something" versus a different style of working for something than the other 2 do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of work for them to learn those things. Like
Mhm,
genuine, like you said, a different kind of like intentional work. Whereas with
mhm.
another kid, it's like just kind of corralling themselves enough to do those things. But like the actual putting the intent into completing the task every time. Are there any particular kinds of therapy or other interventions, devices, whatever that you guys have found particularly helpful?
I was gonna ask earlier because I was kind of having a brain fart on when we got our CBI diagnosis because I feel like
Mm.
that helped with, um,
Unlocked a
also, like,
lot of doors.
yeah, getting, I think, the AC device, also, like.
It was literally in 2020 because everyone had masks on when he was doing the sequencing cards.
Okay. I remember being there and just the details are.
So when he was 2.5, um, gosh, that feels he was 3.5, 4.5, 3.5, 4.5. Anyway, AVI diagnosis was huge. And I think I said earlier, it took us like 4 ophthalmologists to get there because that was one that we really had to advocate for. I haven't had to advocate, honestly, for a lot of stuff. Children's is pretty good with being like, "Yeah, ooh, maybe my other parental advice sliding it in here, like, this sounds awful, but this is just the American system of how it works." But the more intelligent you sound about what you not Googled, but, like, know, and I've learned after being, like, a three-time parent, when you slip this in more off like, when you're like, "This is my 3rd child," or "This is my child of 8 years," or something to that extent, like, people just believe you more, but when you're like, "No, I'm a scientist," or like, "We're this, and we're from the medical whatever," just say you're a nurse or a doctor, and people will speak to you with intelligence and not just kinda brush you off, like, we've noticed that with doctors and therapists and times before, like, "You just need a bite or you just need, like" we didn't come to spend a copay on this. We came to actually have an intellectual conversation, like, "I want to understand what your brain thinks about William, like, so this is what I know, and can you tell me more about what I don't know and what I couldn't Google?" Like, "You're there for a purpose. I'm paying you for a reason. Give me something more." So as soon as, like, the stretch is made, like, gosh, do they give you everything? And you're like, "I wish I had all of this on, like, record, like, thank you so much. You're so intelligent. Why can't you give that to everybody?" Anyway, just I don't know, a piece of be knowledgeable. You know your kid the best. Don't pretend. Sometimes we go in there and we're like, "I don't know, like, he has a fever and there's a sore on his lip and I have no idea." But when you're like, "No, this is what happened the last 24 hours. This is what happened the past 48 hours. And this is what happened at XYZ. And I've monitored this, 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 and this fever was XYZ." Like, okay, so, like, you're actually, like, in touch and in tune, and let me give you a real diagnosis, like, I feel like I'm not as written off.
Yeah.
Rabbit hole.
Yeah, I mean, in our experience, anytime we've showed up ready for a fight, not in like a confrontational way, but in like we are prepared to fight for this if we have to way, whoever we're dealing with can sense that and they'll treat us accordingly.
I literally told the dentist this as we came in for Leucobore, and I was like, "I had my boxing gloves in today, and I didn't even put them on." She's like, "I could sense that." Well, y'all did this stuff.
Yeah. When I've had to not with Leo, but I've had to have conversations with doctors before for me personally where I'm like, "This is what I'm going to do. Like, I've researched this. This is what I'm going to do, and you can help me with this if you want to. That would be great, but I'm not asking for your advice or your permission. I'm telling you what I'm going to do, and I'm asking for your help." So, it's very important to, like, doctors and the medical community as an institution, you should absolutely trust them. Individual doctors are just people and they are fallible and sometimes you have to treat them differently. Like they're not just these, oracles of information that are totally unquestionable. Like sometimes you have to ruffle some feathers.
As much as I love the idea of universal healthcare, and I think it's the most glorious thing ever, won't get into politics. There is a good, God old blessed America appreciation for being able to hop around and pick your own. And
Mhm.
you don't get to do that in very many other places. Like, we would have not been able to find our fourth ophthalmologist to actually say, Will is poster board child for CVI and
Yeah. So
advocate for what we did, yeah.
did the CVI diagnosis just open things up in terms of, like, resources available, or are there specific, like, CVI interventions that you've found that have been helpful?
iPad with the right this was another one of those, like, we needed to learn as much, if not more than Will did on, like, the technology and the software behind what is possible. So, like, learning about the board images and icons and the CVI friendly, like, unblock
Things
images, only yellow,
CVI.
orange, and pink, and there's a lot of CVI friendly, like, icons. And then having the touch board was it the guide that was put on top of the iPad,
Like a grid, yeah.
a grid that made him touch the right areas. And then also having the iPad that had, like, a pause on it because he stims. Because if Will was given an iPad, he'd just fucking touch the same button at the same time over and over and over again. But you put a 1 to 2 second frustrates the hell out of them, and they actually, like, think about what they want to touch it. And then with the OT guard, they use their and then they're not just, like, swipe it. He used to just, like, swipe at the iPad, like, you'd just go like this. And then once you have the guard on sorry, the handpiece on, plus the guard on the iPad, plus the pause, it was like, well, they have these 3 simple things that are not like,
Mm.
I don't know, what's the astro like, not
Yeah, it's not rocket science.
rocket science.
Very, like,
Just
basic.
3 super basic things to, like, close these fingers, put this guard on, and pause the buttons from working until whatever.
So, like, to kinda build on your point, like, we were even with, like, a PEX board, we were printing out pictures with tons of colors on them. They were really busy. And so, like, the CB diagnosis is taught us, like, if Will is gonna differentiate or be able to, like, pick from things, it needs to be very simple and it needs to be very high contrast. Like, even something that simple was now like, "Oh, okay, we have to do this for everything when we're pick from a couple different things or give him images or whatever in front of him." So, it was, even that small of a thing made a big difference for us, for Will anyways.
And I think these tools were almost just all the more helpful to go into schooling. 'Cause we could give all of school, teachers, OTPT speech at school, all of these tools with the, like, therapist names to be like, "This is Will.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Work from this." And if we didn't have that base to go into school with, it would have been like no, don't get me wrong, we've filled up a vineyard 500,000 times and the Perlman 500,000 times. Well, I have you have it. And there's like, I don't know, 17 different like surveys that you're gonna get like every 6 months to continue to fill up. But like having that base to be like, here it all is just a good transition too.
I kinda wanna go back to his your question because you asked, like, what therapies or, like, what additional things might have helped, like, open up some more doors and opportunities. So, like, CBI was one because it helped with a lot of visual devices and, like, insurance things, and then I think the other one too was the autism diagnosis,
Oh
which
yeah.
then, I mean, from I think our insurance correct me if I'm wrong, but from our insurance standpoint, that, like, put us in a whole 'nother, like,
Insurance and IEP is
what we could.
check, check. And I'm not sure how broad the realm of this podcast is, but for Europe, it's actually the opposite. So, like,
Yeah.
you get that diagnosis and you're, like, shuffled off. You almost don't want it. So, for us, it's very different. You get it, and it gets you this. So, like, I've heard very differing opinions, but that's our experience, and it was super helpful.
Yeah, we've talked to some people pretty much from what I understand, the people we've talked to, the US MEFTs are the only ones that usually get an autism diagnosis. We've talked to people from various parts of Europe and from Canada, and none of them generally do. I had another point and I completely lost it. The CVI stuff. So, like, even stuff as simple as like, I didn't even know CVI was a thing until the Cincinnati meetup.
What
Yeah, Michelle had Chloe's therapist come in and talk at breakfast about CVI, and we were like, "Whoa." And so I went online, and we happen to live relatively close to Pittsburgh. Western Pennsylvania School for the Blind has a free clinic there.
Steeler.
Honestly, at this point, I feel that way too. But, Western Pennsylvania School for the Blind has a free clinic. I always like to plug that whenever I can because if you can drive there, they'll give you your CVI diagnosis for free.
Beautiful.
But just like that, seeing how she assessed him and, like, the things that he like, we knew he, like, kinda liked red, but we didn't realize that was a CVI thing. Haley bought him an 8 by 12 sheet of red acrylic, and he will carry like, he'll watch TV through it. We'll put him in his we have a bike chariot that converts into a stroller, and he'll be, like, riding around town holding up his sheet of acrylic. And that pause thing is interesting because I hadn't considered how that would interrupt the stim, what you were talking about with this, because
Oh, it'll
like,
piss
we
them off
were
for there.
Yeah.
Careful with it. You have to use it in doses because
Yeah,
we did it for a second for Will, and we were like, "He won't touch it." He's so upset, like, he dismissed the device altogether, so be careful.
yeah. Yeah, we aren't even really he does it some at school, but he the iPad is just too exciting for him, and so we haven't even really started with that yet. Um, how how communicative is Will with his AAC?
Think so twofold. When he was younger, we made sure we got a lot of good advice to separate the play iPad from the work iPad. So our play iPad with movies and games and all the toddler bimbo bibo whatever stuff has a like
Yeah,
literally a different, but we have like this huge chunky like blue case around it. And then the other one has like nothing. It's like his
It's
device that
a
has a
matte black.
stand on the back. It's matte black, has his grid, and there are 2 very different devices. So, our experience with this is twofold. One that, like, we've gone through, like, a period of time where devices and like, he could get to what he wanted so fast to different pages and different it's hard to talk about it because different programs and different apps have different navigation tools. So, we are using Apple Snap, and it was like, "This is your home board." He'd click his face. He'd click what he wants, and then the whole board would shift to another page. A drink, whole board shifts to another page of the options for what he wants to drink. So, like, just an example of how the shift happens on the different pages and icons. Can flip through it within 3 seconds, and he'll do the same thing about 3 times. And then for the next 7 to 10 seconds, all over the place. Tree, the sky, want, weather, clouds, like all over the place. So you're even with the pot, like he just likes to hear the voices. And we even picked what was it? Like American white boy Tommy from Midwest speaking. Like you can even pick the voice for them. However, we've actually taken a pause from it because we were like, I feel like he's using the device too much. We took like a step back on technology, put the device aside, and we've been using the storyboards a little bit more. And with the storyboards, and that just happened to be the around the time we were doing Book of Warren, he got more vocal. He actually started, like he would touch the Apple sign and say, "Apple," and we're like, "Holy shit, he's actually saying it himself versus the iPad saying it." So we were like, "Alright, we're putting the iPads away for a minute, and we're gonna make him, like, touch these non-tech, like,
They're just pictures on
laminate."
a
We couldn't do lamination at first because lamination was too shiny and he, like, was stimming on the shininess, but now that we've gotten, like, the shininess down, I guess, like, I don't know, like, he was doing better with the low tech, just touch the picture
mhm.
instead of I hope, like, our goal is to actually go back to the iPad within the next year or so, but we're taking an intentional break because he says what he wants and then it's gone. Whereas if he has, like, the low tech in front of him, he'll say it and pause because he knows what it can turn into, but he'll actually try to say it in certain cases as well. So we're like, let's focus on this for a minute and we'll go back later.
Yeah,
Kind of our pivot right now.
yeah, the other, like, thing that was different with those last there, like, we went away from the iPad and to the low tech board, but then, she also printed out a yes, no, like a
Hmm.
sheet of paper that literally had red yes or yes and no, and they were side by side, and you'd ask him a question, and he would,
Super simple.
"Yep. Do you want more food?" "Yes," or "No," and then you would give that whatever he answered, then you would, like, "Okay," then you can like, if you don't want more food, then you can get down. And then it was, like, a very, like, instant gratification or, like, you would give you'd give him exactly what he asked for at that moment in time, and then he started that affiliation of,
Hmm.
"Hey, yes, no, like, I can be anywhere. Do you need to go to the bathroom? Yes or no. Do you wanna go outside? Yes, no." Like, you can make it it, like, completely open-ended instead of needing a device and needing to program, like, "Oh, we don't have any animal crackers today, so I need to put something else in there." So, like, it really, like, made it interesting and open-ended, and
As
anybody could use
cool
it.
as the device sounds for being able to, like, communicate, like, as awesome as that sounds, we are not there yet, and we need to simplify things more, and the iPad actually complicates it. Although it's crazy. Will can get complicated really quick. Like I told you, he can navigate through, like, 6 pages and tell
I
you what he
saw him
wants,
do that when we were at the restaurant in
but
Cincinnati. It
then it
was really
gets, like,
impressive.
too far, and you're almost like, I don't know if our iPad isn't complicated enough for him or if it actually needs to be simplified. Does it, like, give the realistic, like, 8-year-old options? Like, so we're in that, like, this is a Phil and I plus, like, will and ability, like, it's always gonna be a grapple of, like, the right attention span for technology, worth it, juice worth the squeeze worth it, but for a moment, we're taking a pause to do
Mm.
some low tech to, like, be intentional.
Yeah, I've also noticed with Leo too, and I haven't been able to ask like a therapist or doctor or anything and them give me like a satisfying answer yet. But there's something like a picture on a screen to him isn't the same as even if he can hold a picture physically on a piece of paper. Like there's something with that screen that just adds an extra layer that is really difficult to him to get through. So that adds a whole nother layer of complication.
To
But go
build
ahead, sorry.
on earlier, like, to kinda maybe close the loop on other ways that Will communicates, but he started to, like, take us by the hand and walk us around the house to things that he like, locations that he knows. Like, we have a bookshelf, so he'll take us over to the bookshelf that he wants to read a book. We have a spot where we play music with one of, like, the smart speakers, and so he'll, take us over there, or if he wants some food or a drink or something, he'll
That's true.
just
I'm not gonna say her name now, but he knows where the A's are in the house. He will guide your hand to the A's and just stand you there until you tell her to play his music.
Mm, yeah, no, I
I'm
it
like,
took me a minute, but I'm
"Oh."
tracking now.
yeah, yeah, she'll turn up.
She will in the
Yeah.
middle of all this, so
Yeah, Leo has started not only, like, taking us to do what he wants, but, like, putting us places too, like, "You're
uh-huh.
gonna go over to here, this chair, and sit down while I play." And he'll, like, drag us in. It's funny, like, 'cause we're going through the process getting rid of binkies and, like, all he still gets a binky when he's sleeping, but they're all in a Tupperware container inside his dresser, so he'll, like, drag you there. It's like, "No, you can't have one," and then he'll just take off, and he's gonna go run through the house and try to find one, and if he'll find one, you'll, like, turn around and be like, "Where'd you get that binky?" And you snatch it from him, and he doesn't get mad about it anymore, he's just kinda like, "Okay, like, that's fair." You put it in that box,
Mhm.
but I lost yeah. But
That's
so it's getting kinda late here. I'm sure you guys wanna go to enjoy the rest of your evening, but real quick before we end, can you talk about Leucovorin and how Will's done with that?
Stand a little bit after the Cincinnati meetup, a lot of the family, and so Audra had called, was it the geneticist or the
It's really funny how this has panned out for a lot of the parents because some of them get it from their geneticist, some from the neurologist, some for their gen ped, and some were told to seek it elsewhere, but they had to prove it. For us, oddly enough, like at children, maybe not oddly because it's children's. I don't know. We're all medical based. We were sent to one geneticist that does it for all children's and one campus in one unique area. And I felt like I was going to do a drug deal. But after I got there with my boxing gloves, was happy to reco it, actually at the highest dosage possible to start, so we didn't have to work our way up. I think we had a lot of variables change within the month we started.
yeah, so
School started, we lost our nanny, we go ahead.
yep, school started, nanny at like, when he started school, then all the kids were in school, so the nanny, our nanny went to find, like, a full-time job elsewhere, and then we started speech therapy with him at the same time, and he loves school, so, like, getting on the bus, there's a routine, I think that really helps him where summer can be a little bit more chaotic and sporadic, so, I mean, once he was on leucovorin, he, like Audrey was saying earlier, in speech therapy, he started being more vocal. So I think it's hard to say, like, leucovorin was what's the
The sole number one variable that
I think we noticed some things that were a little bit different, but we couldn't attribute it specifically to leucovorins. I think, you know, so it's what, like 6
We've
months?
been on it for 6 months.
And I think we may kinda, like, do an on-off test just to see, like, okay, he goes back off of it, do we notice anything different? And then it's not really hurting anything, right? Since it's a it's a
Well,
calcium.
it's a boosted calcium tablet.
Yeah, so we're kind of, like, trying to understand or try to test the he's on it, we saw improvements, a lot of things were changing at that time. We may take a break for a little bit here just to see, like, "Hey, do we notice anything different?" And then,
Kind of as
kinda
a
go from there.
like, put my whatever aside, but I kind of as a scientist, I'm like, this is one of those things where, like, multiple variables have to be happening in your favor at the same time to actually give it, like, the full boost. Like,
Mhm.
he I can't tell. And there was a weird connection as well because his speech therapist that he finally connected with previous to the last, what, 5, 6 that we'd tried, we never have made a good connection with speech therapists. So this one really clicked. She happened to be a girl I babysat for when I was in high school, and her sister has Down syndrome, and I was like, "Oh my god, I remember you because of X, Y." Not only do I feel really old, but I remember you because of X, Y, and Z. And she's like, "Yeah, you babysat us for like multiple years." Like, there was just a weird like vibe of connections, but Will got her, and Will was so happy with her that like she said jump and he said how high. And so we're at the point where like, was it the speech therapist? Was it the leucovorin? Speech therapist stopped in December. Leucovorins continued. From December to now, can't say that but there are a lot of holidays in there. Like we've been traveling a lot. Like, so there's always just so many variables that are up in the air that I can and not to mention, not sure where you are and if you guys are on it or not, but, like, it's been nearly impossible to get. Every time I need a refill, I'm calling 5 pharmacies and driving over 30 minutes to get 30 tablets to last me less than 15 days. So I'm like, "Goodness gracious, is the juice actually worth the squeeze?" We we've gotten to the point where I'm like, "This is this is not sustainable unless it's, like, hugely impactful." I don't
Yeah.
know. We're gonna be doing an on-off phase here soon to see if juice is worth the squeeze.
Yeah, we're lucky enough, Haley works at a really good pharmacy, which is especially really good when you consider that we live in podunk nowhere, so they compound it for us, we actually get it as a liquid, and we've not had
Oh,
troubles
that's
with finding it at
awesome.
all. But I would say that, like, your anecdotal experience lines up with a lot of others as far as, like, increased vocality, I don't know if that's a word, but, like, that's a very common thing to see from what I understand with the leucovorin. The other thing is we notice, like, an initial boost with the leucovorin, and then it doesn't, like, continue to progress linearly, you just kinda get, like, that little pop, and you sustain that boost. The other thing that we got kind of that same little boost again with was cutting out a synthetic folate in Leo's diet, which has been a little bit tricky, but we do seem to have noticed some benefit to that. There's also recommendations that you should cut dairy out as well, that interferes with the leucovorin somehow,
Mhm.
which you would
Calcium.
understand better than me, but, like, he eats
Yeah.
so much yogurt, and that's, like, one of the really consistent, like, relatively healthy foods we can get him to eat all the time, so that's just not feasible for us.
No, that's
Yeah.
helpful.
So, kinda the question we usually end things with, it's actually 2 questions. So, like, what are the most difficult things about caring for someone with MEF2C that might not be obvious to, because, like, there's certain things that are obvious to, like, everybody on the outside, but, like, maybe things that you guys deal with that wouldn't be obvious to someone who wasn't intimately familiar with your lives. And then on the other side, like, what are the good things that you've gleaned from that you don't think you would have gotten otherwise?
See is the extra, like, planning. So, like, for example, like, our daughter's she swims, and if you go to a new pool during a swim meet, like, it is crazy loud. So having to, like, set up extra care or even, like, we recently wanted to do like a family vacation, but then you have to be very choiceful about things that can include will, or you have to find care for them. So that's kind of like something that comes up a lot in everyday life, and then also for like vacations and stuff. And then the other one that was, a lot harder to talk about is like the planning long term. So like we have 401ks. How is that gonna help with, or like how do we think about our future as it includes will, like long term? So a
You
lot
set
of
up 529s for your neurotypical kids, and you're like, "Do I double my 420?" He will have Social Security by 2020 by 21, but, like, there's a lot of, like and then when you have other kids that go into the trust thinking as well, like, I don't want them to be taken away from so the trust has to actually be planned properly. So the 3 don't get equal amounts, the 2 get the most, and Will gets his, but the 2 are properly like, there's actually a lot of, like, thought process that I don't think most people go through.
Yeah. So, like, you don't know how long Will's gonna live, right? So, and there could be like a medical complexity that really hits him hard early, but he could. I mean, we both have grandparents who are
No li
very old, like basically
Johnny!
like both my I have two grandparents in their 90s. You had grandparents in your 80s, so like like Will could like has the genetics to potentially live for a very long time. So to try to plan for that and figure out keep us available and really hard conversations around that. So I think that's one thing that maybe even our like immediate families only see once, and that.
Yep. Yours was way more complex. My only one was that and maybe more relevant for you than others potentially listening is in your early ages, it hit me. It's really easy to find a babysitter when your kids are under 5. And when Will got to around 8, I realized we only had one quote unquote like Medicaid provider nanny like that was coming in that knew Will. And when your son's size where teenage girls aren't comfortable with changing diapers and they're not potty trained yet, it actually throws way more complexity than I ever thought about because those sophomore and high school girls aren't coming over to babysit anymore. They'll watch your other 2, but they're not changing dirty diapers. So we got some very straight talk from a couple of sitters that we had coming in that didn't feel comfortable anymore changing Will's dirty diapers. And we were like, now I need to get serious with Medicaid because I actually need that respite now when I need a sitter because I can't find like the babysitter up the street to come watch my kid. They love our kids. Like our kids are all awesome, but like it's almost like parents are a part of the thing too. Like I don't want my freshman, sophomore in high school changing a diaper. So we've had some hard conversations on just diaper changing. And that for me was like I didn't see this coming. Now I thought we could handle this without being a part of Medicaid all the time and having grandparents involved and having this. And you're like, now I can't just find the sitter down the street anymore. This part matters. The diaper changing starts to be the click.
Mhm. Yeah. Just, real quick, I wanted to point out you were talking about the long-term stuff. I think it was in 2024, there was a gene reviews on MEF2C. If I'm remembering correctly, the oldest person that they found on record with MEF2C was 87. So, um, a lot of people have concerns about, like, if there are any long-term implications with it. So I just like to point that out to that's one person, there's not too much you can glean from that, but just give people a little bit of hope. Sorry, and now the other question.
Repeat the second part. It was like, what do you?
Maybe the good like, the positive things you've gotten out of it that you don't think you would have got otherwise, like the way Will's made you a better person.
I'll first say for our kids, he is the best role model for my children possible. Like, you talk about a kid that eats everything, like, does everything you say for the most part. Like, when you guide him into the car, he gets into the car on time. Like, I don't know, maybe just like our life stage right now, but like the best role model ever for our kids. So, in terms of like obedience, like just like following what's the trend and what's normal and what you should be doing, he's been phenomenal. He's also the happiest kid in the world. Sensory seeker is a lot easier to accommodate than a sensory adverse child, which I'm sure you know as well. Although musicals and large
To a certain
to a
point, right?
certain point, yeah, like we can't take him to any
Sporting
amusement
events.
park, sporting event, like we know our limits. But yeah, he's so happy, like, he's so motivated to try anything, like, it's all we get back from his teachers. He's so motivated. He will try anything once. He will fail flat on his face, but he will try it. He will try it once, like, so, I don't know, like
Yeah, I think it's really neat to see, like, when we go out to, like, an event or a fundraiser or something that is school related or even, like, they had, like, a summer fest or winter fest down for the small the township that we're in. And,
oh,
like,
yeah.
kids would come up and be like, "Will, how's it going?" And they'd wave to him and, like, give him a high five and stuff, and just, like
They know how to communicate with him. They're
yeah.
like, "Will, right here, high five." Like, hey, mom, that's Will, that's Will, that's Will." Like,
But
it's really cute.
he can't come home and tell us, like, who people are and stuff, so we really were, like, going in blind. He'd come home and you get a note, "Will did great today," or whatever, but we didn't know, like, who he interacted with, so that was really, like, cool and neat and interesting to see, like, how the other kids would, like,
Mhm,
seek him out at a very public event and come over and say hi to him and kind of include him just even just for a minute and say
mhm.
hi, so
Yep,
Yeah, it
agreed.
seems like they're always, like, an immense source of joy in other people's lives, and,
Mhm,
like, Leo, when he goes to school, obviously not right now because it's cold, but, like, when they go outside for recess, there's, like, kids fighting over who's gonna get to push Leo on the swing, so
mhm,
yeah, I think and, he's taught me that, like, it's not about what you're doing, it's about, like, how you it's not about what you're doing, it's about your attitude and who you're with, like, he could make a trip to the DMV a good time because he's just gonna chill and, you know you know, play with his hands and
good
his
analogy.
acrylic sheet and figure out something to do to make it a good time. We always say he's the vibes guy, and he just sets the vibe right, and everything's cool otherwise, so,
Yep, can agree with that.
that's
yeah.
awesome.
Well, thank you guys so much for your time. Thank you to all our listeners. You can find us on Facebook, the MEF2Ccast, MEF2CAST.com. The email is podcast@MEF2Ccast.com, and check out our Shopify store if you'd like to buy a t-shirt. Thanks, everybody.